Hey, welcome to the West Coast Bias. I'm Andrew Nemec, joined as always by Jason Suke and Nemec. Suke, the New York Knicks are NBA champions.
I know.
Team USA seems to be a potential, juggernaut in the World Cup compared to lowly Spain, who tied in their first match. The world is upside down.
Yeah, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Although I have the 10,000 officers are assigned to the New York Knicks parade, and we looked it up. There's like 850 cops in the entire city of Portland.
Oh wow!
Yeah, 10,000 NYPD guys are around the parade route. That's number, I was like, how? I looked it up. You'd have to the entire state of Oregon. I think we have 4,000 and change in the entire state.
That's actually legitimately interesting. That's crazy.
Yeah, we have like 4,000. And so you'd have to get us, and then like if you got every officer in Seattle and some of the surrounding areas, that's how many are at the championship parade. Just at the parade. So if you're thinking about committing a crime, do it now in New York. You should have a heist movie, and like you build it around a championship parade. There's like millions of people flooding into downtown, 10,000 cops. Who's policing the rest of the city? Go knock over a liquor store.
Yeah, that's like the story where there were a whole bunch of people who were disappeared during 9/11 in various crime that took place during 9/11 because everybody knew the cops weren't going to be around. It was a little bit sketchy. I thought the NBA Finals was an absolute abject disaster for one person in particular, and I don't think it's getting talked about enough. I think truly coming into the NBA Finals, you could have argued Victor Wembanyama's approval rating was not an all-time high, but for all athletes by any stretch, but there was real talk about him being the new face of the league. And I think that gets overdone, but he's an alien. His approval rating was sky high. Has anyone fumbled a universally loved rating faster than Wembanyama? He didn't do media interviews when they lost, which is just lame. Wouldn't shake hands, which happens, but again, looks bad when you have several dirty plays. He does some weird things that now, because he doesn't look like the Zen master, not wearing your shoes and not doing all this stuff. That all sounds good. And I worked out with monks and I'm friends with nuns. That all sounds good until you are a petulant child during the NBA Finals. He was dirty, didn't do interviews, wouldn't shake hands, and now people legitimately don't like him. The only athlete I can think of, and was not universally loved, who had a worse championship game, not from a performance standpoint, but from we know what time you're on, you're kind of on BS, is Cam Newton. Cam Newton made a, quote, business decision not to fall on a fumble in the Super Bowl, forever changed the way people viewed him. It was like, well, he's kind of an ass, they thought, but like he's competitive. He wants to win. He's a great quarterback. He's a great athlete. From that Super Bowl on, I know people, including myself, who stopped taking him seriously as an elite quarterback because he didn't care. In the biggest moment of his life, falling a fumble, the game's still in some doubt. He refused to do it. And it changed the way we thought about him forever. I think we feel that way about Wemby. Now, he may win multiple NBA championships and probably will. He's going to eventually win MVP awards. I'm not questioning his career arc. But on the biggest stage, when there's these beloved Knicks, he was a dirty player who threw constant fits, and he's supposed to be the dude who's like so centered. I have never seen a player shift from beloved to hated quicker than Victor Wembanyama. I think that's not good for the league long term.
Oh, I mean, Durant did this.
Not to this level. Because people thought Durant was kind of a
no, dude. Kevin Durant when he was in Oklahoma City was a darling. That guy was like going to like pickup games.
And then he left for the Warriors, and that was that.
Yes.
But then that was the end, though. Then it was like, well, he's a bandwagon.
That's my whole point. Is Kevin Durant was maybe the most beloved player in the NBA this side of Steph Curry, and he by going to the team that just beat you, Kevin Durant then went on a meteoric fall from grace to where Kevin Durant was viewed as an absolute chaunch. I
I mean, I'd argue that was a multi-step thing. He joined a bandwagon team, won a championship, and then has wrecked teams every stop he's been on since then. This is just like a 2-week blitzkrieg
I don't buy that Wemby has ruined anything. Dude, that was the most watched finals since 1998, and largely because of obviously New York and Wemby. And next year, Wemby will be outside of the Knicks. Will they repeat? The biggest story in the NBA will be Victor Wembanyama, and he's going to be the defensive player of the year in perpetuity. He's going to win MVPs, and he'll be a polarizing figure. But Wemby will have massive fan base. I'll tell you right now, if I had to watch an NBA game and there was one guy that I could pay to go see, it'd be Wemby.
Agreed.
I wouldn't go pay to see half this league, but if I had one game that I had to go see, it'd be Wemby.
Agreed.
So, I don't think that we're so fickle. We hate you and now we love you, and it's all horse crap. Give Wemby the middle of the year next year and he'll do something crazy. We'll have like a 46-22 and like 12 blocks, and we'll be back to, giving him smooth, J jobs, and everyone will love him. I don't buy that this has any sort of super lasting impact. I mean, you're younger than me, but I remember Jordan before he won titles. And dude, he used to just get ripped by everybody, every media member. He's selfish. He's a terrible teammate. He's a coach killer. I don't want him on my team. He's just, all he is marketing, and people didn't like him and they love to rip him apart. And then he starts winning titles, and he wins, 6 in a row, 6 in 8 years because the break. And then he's the best thing ever. Kobe Bryant is the biggest ass to come through the NBA in 30 years. Go watch or go read the Laker book that Jeff Pearlman just wrote about their Shaq and Kobe and like the dynasty that fell. Everyone hated Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was like the biggest narcissist, rape trial, all that stuff. And then all he had to do was change his number and, and he quit
and die.
His reputation is completely changed.
Dude, when he came back from all that, and after Shaq left, he quit on the team, right? He wanted out of LA. He quit on the team. Oh, he's a bum. And then he came back and he won a title. Actually won 2 in LA. And now he's back to, then he was the saving, conquering hero. And, God, Kobe's as revered as anyone in the NBA. So I just, this stuff about Victor having any sort of long-term damage, I just don't buy it.
I just think from an approval rating standpoint, it'll never be the same, because once you're a dirty player pin is on you, it's hard to wash that off, man.
He's a dirty player.
Let's go back to it. He's an amazing basketball player, and I will always appreciate his basketball. There's no doubt. But I thought he was like kind of above all that, and he was like this very controlled, mature young man. I don't really feel that way anymore. And I think a lot of people feel the way I do. He went from sky-high approval rating to, is he a little bit of a dirty player? And I think that's going to be hard to wash off.
He's still a top 3 most popular player in the NBA, and he's probably. I
wonder if that changes.
And he's still wait till he gets to the finals next year and wins a title. He'll be fine. Like, dude, this is all Stephen A. Smith. Like, it's something that people like to grab onto. There is nothing more fickle than in this country than approval ratings. I'd like to point out that there's a man sitting in the White House right now that at one point his own party said he's a political pariah and can never, ever, ever be seen in public again. Well, guess what? He's the president now, and half the country freaking loves him. So I just don't. This Wemby did nothing in that series that's, to me, has any sort of lasting impact whatsoever on what his long-term legacy will be. If that guy stacks together the career that people think he's going to stack, wins erase everything. They just do. If you win, no one cares. Now, if you lose, and you lose in big moments and you melt down in big moments, then it doesn't matter what you do. James Harden will go down as probably a top 5 scorer in the history of the NBA. Like, we look at his points and assists. Like, James Harden will have a truly storied career, and no one will give 2 S's. about any of it. Like that's the sort of thing that sticks with you, that sort of failure. But
I'd put Durant in that category too.
Yeah,
everywhere Durant's been, where they built a team just around him and not, he joined the Warriors. Yeah. They've not only been bad, they've been horrifically bad. Yeah. And he's supposed to be one of the best 3-level scorers in the history of the league.
Kevin Durant is legitimately the second best player of his generation. And it won't be that. When he played with Steph Curry, the best player on that team wasn't Steph Curry, it was Kevin Durant. The only player of his generation that's better than Kevin Durant is LeBron James. Kevin Durant is the second best player of that generation, and the history books will not tell that tale. They will not. The tale will be he was really good and everyone hated him and he was a cancer wherever he went. That will be true. That will be the end of Kevin Durant. But there's nothing Wemby's done. He's 22 years old. Again, all that guy needs to do is keep playing and keep stacking awards. You win a couple MVPs, and if he wins a title or two, all that stuff will go out the window. And really it only takes one sometimes. I mean, Kevin Garnett was viewed this way and eventually got one in Boston after he was long past. Like Kevin Garnett in Minnesota was an animal. Kevin Garnett in Boston was more of a defensive specialist. Yep. But, he got a title, and that's all that matters. Now, KG's, resume is complete. And in reality, Kevin Garnett's a much better player than what he was in Boston, but that's all you remember him for. Yeah. So Wemby will be fine. I am not at 22 years old. Talk to me in a decade and let's see what Wemby's
down with Wemby, Suke. Down with Wemby.
Oh God, he threw an elbow. Just get over ourselves.
And a head push of the beloved Jalen Brunson.
A head push. Yeah, okay. lots of NBA players have thrown. Kobe Bryant sucker punched people all the time.
A dirty screen where he stomped at a dude's ACL.
Yeah, I mean, my God, let's
stack them. Stack them.
What a terrible human being.
I wrote about Oregon's NIL situation. Wrote in the headline, does Oregon have an NIL problem outside of football? I think that is very much up for debate. You can see it as a problem. You can see it as a reality. But the truth is Oregon is not spending at a top tier level in women's basketball, in baseball, in men's basketball. And we are seeing and feeling the pinch of that. 2 of Oregon's former 5-star women's basketball players, Tahina Paopao and Angela Dugalich, transferred and went and won national titles at South Carolina and UCLA after transferring. In men's basketball, I wrote about Jackson Shelstead and Kwame Evans transferring, the 2 stars of the basketball team this offseason. Oregon's deals, as I reported, were not even in the ballpark of competitive. Forget, like close and then it's a winning situation. No, the deals weren't competitive. They have not hired a general manager to deal with that. Dana Altman does not want to. He's sort of in denial still about NIL and its impact. So the assistant coaches are actually negotiating these deals, and they don't totally know the legalese of these discussions. So I had a source that's really familiar. I talked to some agents. I talked to a number of sources connected to or have been connected to the program. They said Oregon's a fish out of water in men's basketball negotiation. They have someone who's not versed in contract negotiations for NIL sitting down and working with these athletes when, if you're competing against 5-star guys, other programs have general managers who know how to write contracts and know how to deal with various loopholes. And then in baseball, they lost 2-star freshmen this week. That was really the catalyst of it. The way I wrote it, I don't blame football. This is not a football's making a mistake issue. And this is not an Oregon's athletic department is doing something, air quotes, bad. I don't feel like, oh my God, Oregon's giving all their money to football. We all know Oregon's a big bully in football. The reality is, and very clearly, as I wrote and have multiple sources in some of the numbers, they're not in the other sports. In women's basketball, where I think, a lot of people tie that to Sabrina Ionescu, and they could have won a national championship if it weren't for COVID. Their budget's around 1/4 of what the perennial Final Four teams are. In basketball, they're millions short, not of the top teams in the nation, of the top programs in the Big Ten. There's kind of an upper crust, and we all know who those names are. There's an upper crust of the Big Ten basketball programs. Oregon's millions short of those guys. In baseball, I don't have the numbers. I just know they're losing their young stars. I don't know if it's a problem. I don't know if it's something that anybody outside of, outside of Oregon collective big sports fan cares about. But I do think it's interesting. And the other point I'd make that I didn't write in the story, it's really hurting Oregon on the recruiting trail. And the reason is Oregon's reputation is as a spender. We know Oregon is an innovative, big budget athletic department. So when they go out and recruit in men's basketball, in women's basketball, and men's is a whole nother thing because the way they're going about their negotiations seems farcical too, and potentially baseball, recruits are feeling like Oregon's lowballing them. Oregon's got all the money in the world. Why are they coming in so low? Well, the reality is every sport is different. And Oregon may be a big spender in football. They're just not in men's basketball, women's basketball, and again, potentially baseball. Again, I leave it up to other people to decide if that's a problem, but it is an issue for those programs. And I think expecting them to compete for national titles, a thing that the men's basketball almost did with a Final Four run that women's basketball could have done if it weren't for COVID, is a pipe dream at this point until they either get a full share of Big Ten media money or they readjust their priorities, maybe following a national title win, although I can't imagine in football that would change the way they spend. You win a national title, you don't suddenly pull your money out. But it does seem like it's at least worth a talking point. I think it's interesting.
I think what this is to me is just the reality that, I mean, college sports has been a business for decades, but certainly let's say over the last 15 years, it's gone into a different stratosphere. The last 10, and then it really took off. And then the last 5 with conference realignment and with NIL, right? And that now revenue sharing, where you can pay out. The truth of the matter is not everyone has an unlimited budget. Like, we want to believe that Oregon has an unlimited budget. You want to believe that Texas has an unlimited budget and Texas Tech and all these places. But the truth of the matter, there isn't. There's no such thing as an unlimited budget. In fact, we recently found out with Live, right? Like, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world now, but a lot of that is largely on paper, right? He's worth $1 trillion, and most of that is stock. He doesn't have $1 trillion, right? If he started selling stock, that stock would plummet, and he's not worth $1 trillion. He does not have $1 trillion to come up with. He certainly has billions to come up with, but it is believed that maybe the richest entity on the planet is the Saudis, like those sovereign nation funds, right, in the Middle East. And they tried to take down the PGA Tour. And we were like, well, this is interesting because we've never seen an unlimited budget. Never seen it. And it turns out it wasn't an unlimited budget. Go figure, right? A little skirmish in the Middle East, oil prices start fluctuating or whatever. And suddenly a group of people seemingly with an unlimited budget had a budget. And they were like, we're doing what? No. And Liv's dead. So there's no such thing as an unlimited budget. So you can sit there and say Phil Knight, well, Nike's not doing that great, right? And Phil is kind of on the back end. So I'm guessing that Phil's not writing billion-dollar checks to Oregon. I mean, they built a new $300 million facility there, but again, that's not every year. It's a one-time thing. You start thinking about it, the idea of spending. If you were to spend at the top of your level in every sport, I mean, already we're talking about football rosters being what, $50 million? Between revenue sharing and NIL, that's
15.
That's.
I mean, not at. Oh, yeah. Those. So the public numbers. I want to. I've dug into this as well. The public numbers that people are seeing are too high. That's what I've always thought. But you say 20 million in revenue share, right? And let's say 15 of that goes to football, and then you can't tell me that the NIL budgets for football aren't in the $20 million range. I mean. 40 million roughly for the top programs in the country, okay. I think, but the 50 numbers are too high.
Okay, let's say 40 million. 40 million for your football roster. Sure. Say your basketball roster, if you want some top players, let's say Debanza, the top player, they said 7. I think realistically that's probably more like 4 or 5. But either way, for a basketball roster, right? So let's say a basketball roster, let's say that's 10 to 15. Mm-hmm. And then let's say you want, a baseball roster. Now you're at 2. Let's say you want a women's basketball roster and the best in the country, South Carolina. Let's say maybe that's 2 or 3.
The Final Four teams are 5 to 7. South Carolina and UCLA are 5 to 7 million. So you start adding this up, and you have every school now looking at this and saying, "Dude, this is $100+ million. It's $100 million that we have to come up with every year."
a year.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's the same donors. This is the other thing. This is the exhausting part of it. Let's say I'm a rich guy. Let's say I'm Troy Aikman. That was the famous one where Troy Aikman, wrote the check supposedly for Dante Moore for a couple $1 million, and Dante Moore left after a year. So Troy Aikman makes $30 million a year, and UCLA comes to him and says, hey, we need $3 million to go get this quarterback. And he says, cool. That was a one-time thing. You think they can go back to Troy Aikman?
No, I think he specifically said he left after I gave him all that money. I'm never doing this again, right?
Yes.
Didn't he publicly say that?
He publicly said that. Yeah. So there's a guy right there at UCLA that you can't get. You're not getting $3 million out of him. Right. So how many of those entities out there were rich guys that weren't the Elon Musk, that weren't the Saudis, that were writing these checks? And now we're 5 years into this, and half of these programs haven't won Jackass. Half of these kids that you've paid for aren't there anymore. I'm guessing and again, it's not like I'm claiming I'm super tight in. I know a handful of people at 3 or 4 different schools that are mid-level boosters, right? I don't know a single whale. Let me just say that. I just know people that have written checks.
You don't have a Rolodex of 30 whales you can call in 24 hours?
I do not. So me personally, I know someone that wrote a check for 6 figures. That's the biggest check that I know. Yeah. Someone I know personally that wrote a check for, and it was low 6 figures, was not high 6 figures.
Yeah, sure.
Okay? Let's say 200,000, and that's the check he wrote. It's the biggest I know, and so just talking to some of these people, there's more of them than there are the whales, the Phil Knights, and some of them are getting tired. Yeah, some of them are like, dude, you can't keep coming back to me. I'm not going to keep doing this because I'm not getting anything for it. Mm-hmm. Like there's a law of diminishing returns. And so as I think there's been some booster and NIL fatigue, the price for everyone just keeps going up. Mm-hmm. It's like the housing market. You're like, who's paying these prices? Well, someone is, because someone keeps jacking these things up. And so I do think you have schools around the country, including mighty Oregon, that is looking at this and saying, look, the money has to be allocated somewhere, and it's not going to be equal. And maybe there's some places where things are more important than others. I'm guessing at South Carolina, they're always going to spend a little more on their women's basketball team.
Sure.
But South Carolina also doesn't have a great basketball team, men's team, and they don't have a great football team. Whereas other places, if you're Oregon and you're sitting around and you say, hey, we have X coming in, and let's be honest, there's only one entity that pays for itself. That's football, right? And so I think what you're happening at Oregon, I think what's happening in a lot of other schools is tough decisions are having to be made, and you are finding out where the priority lies. And the priority right now is probably 90% football. And I know for the men's basketball program, I know for the women's basketball team, I know for the baseball team, as you lose guys and girls, I know that sucks. But I think if you ask the average Duck fan, which is more important and by what magnitude, they'll tell you football.
Sure.
And let's be honest, if football is bringing in 90% of the money, and should 90% of the money go towards the football team, because football has funded everything forever, and so we
Football's
think that's
the cash cow, undeniably.
So we think that some of that is changed a little bit over the years, but like even at a school like South Carolina where basketball is king, or UConn women basketball is king, they're still not the ones driving their revenue. They're still living off subsidies from the other programs. So, do I think it's great? And do I think it's a bad optic? Yeah. But at the same time, I understand why. Schools are going to have to start running.
I do too.
Schools are going to have to start running like businesses. And the bottom line is, when you don't bring in money, you're not going to get it unless the school decides that they are going to prioritize it. And to me, it seems pretty evident. Take it what you will. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It appears, and I don't know how you can view it any other way, that Oregon has viewed football here, and it views everyone else. I mean, it's not like football and then basketball. It's like football and everything else.
Totally agree.
And they're still competitive, right? And baseball program got to super regionals, but they lost one of their best young freshmen who everyone was really excited about. They're still good in track and field, but track and field isn't a big NIL generator. Yeah. You can probably exist in that world, pretty cheaply. But in the world of basketball, men's and women's, where there are some healthy budgets out there, and if you're telling me the top budget for women is 5 to 7, you're telling me the top budget for men is let's say 10 to 15. Oregon's nowhere near that.
Sure.
And so the idea that Oregon is considered a power in those, well, let's say this, if the football budget, if we're saying the top football budget is 40, and let's say, and let's say Oregon's was 25, would we expect Oregon to be the football program they are? No. So I think honestly, it's just, this is the way it's going to be, unless people want to start writing massive checks specifically for the women's basketball program.
Right.
And you need to readjust your expectations. In college sports, more than any time else in the world, you get out of it what you put in. This really comes down to dollars and cents. Texas Tech has money. All of a sudden, Texas Tech is good. BYU all of a sudden can spend money. All of a sudden, BYU is pretty good. These are schools that were never really relevant before, but they have money. And now you can spend money and you can be good. You get money, you spend money, you become good. And right now at Oregon, you get money, you spend money, but you spend it here and not here. So it's just time to recalibrate your expectations.
Yeah.
And the expectations of the football program are different right now.
I think the hard part, and I'm not speaking for anyone internally with these programs, I just think the hard part internally, I could assume, would be if you're Kelly Graves and you potentially almost won a national championship a few years ago, with Sabrina Ionescu and Ruthie Hebert and Aaron Boley and that whole crew. People assume you're going to keep it rolling. And so there's like, what the heck is wrong with your program? Like, you only made it to the second round. You guys suck now, and it's like, well, we're a little hamstrung, and I think that's tough. I think the same thing for Dana Altman. I think Dana Altman hates NIL. I think he talks about it openly. I think he wouldn't hate it quite so much if he had a bigger budget. And I think he's got a limited budget. And when he recruits high-level kids, they want a big chunk of that budget. And he's like, well, now I can't have a complete roster. This sucks.
Yeah, we talked to Ohio State. This was years and years ago. It was when Gene Smith was the AD at Ohio State. We had him on the program. This might have been way back when Oregon played Ohio State for the first time in the Rose Bowl. And that was,
God, wow. That's a long time ago.
That long time
2011 or 2012?
Like it is just, dude, I'm 1,000 years old.
Are you talking about the Terrell Pryor?
Yeah, Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, that's 2011, 2012.
And we had Gene Smith on, and we were talking about, and obviously it was an entirely different world. And we kind of mentioned, because at the time, Ohio State had a pretty good basketball team too, right? It was like, it was Greg Oden and all that. And Ohio State, Ohio State was kind of rolling a little bit. And we asked him about it. And I remember him saying something like, at Ohio State, we don't field as many sports as maybe some of the other teams. We won't field a sport unless we can commit to being the best at it. Right. Like he was like, we have to fund our programs at the very tip top level. And he took a lot of pride in that. Right. He's Ohio State had one of the best athletic programs in the country across all boards. Right. And because I think at the time we were talking about women's sports and, how you allocate and all that, because football paid for everything back then. Still kind of does, but no other money could come in. And if you look at Ohio State recently, I don't know if you've noticed, but Ohio State's kind of become football centric.
Yes.
And not that they always haven't been football centric, but Ohio State and some of those other sports has fallen off significantly. They just do. They are no longer necessarily the major player in some of those other sports.
Being a well-rounded athletic department is damn near impossible right now.
It's really hard. And that's Ohio State.
Yeah.
Ohio State is a juggernaut of an athletic department. And even a place like the mighty Ohio State is having to take a look at it and say, dude, we're paying Ryan Day what the top coaches are making $10-12 million. So we're paying Ryan Day $12 million. We're not paying our basketball coach like that. And if we're paying our basketball coach a healthy amount, well, we gotta, it's all a trickle down effect.
Yeah.
And you're just flat out seeing it, where I don't care who you are, no one is immune to it. So we just have this notion in our head that there's these rich boosters, and it's a never-ending well, and it's not the case. And remember, back in the day when Nick Saban was buying players, you could put together a national championship roster in college football for about $2 million.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 to 4 million at the absolute most. Yeah,
Cam Newton, and now granted, Cam Newton was a junior college kid, so it wasn't like he was like,
but he came from a D1 place.
Came from a D1 place,
legit 5-star recruit.
And Cam cost what? It was like $250,000. $250. Reggie Bush was as good as any college football player I've ever seen. Reggie Bush was worth $500,000. I think, and I'm sure there were some other people that paid him or whatever, but basically to get Reggie Bush to be happy, it was $500,000.
The going rate to get an official visit in the SEC right before NIL was $10,000. If a kid was interested in you and he wanted to take an official visit, if there was $10,000 in the bag, he would go. And by the way, that was a known freaking number. So for all the people who are like, how did this stuff work before? There was just 10 grand cash or, whatever, when you got to your hotel room or when you shook hands with somebody.
Supposedly,
known, not 10,000. That's nothing to get a 5-star visit.
And I've heard, again, take it for what it's worth, but I've heard, DeAnthony was 200 grand. And USC may have paid that too. So maybe he may have gotten it from both places.
May have. How's that for like the not so secret story of recruiting? The reason USC, let's call it what it is, the rumor, allegedly, the reason USC was so confident that he wasn't going to flip to Oregon and that maybe he was getting a little bit of money to take a visit was they already paid him. And then he went to Oregon and went, sue me. This money is illegal. It's essentially drug money. You can't take me to court and be like, we were dealing drugs and we want our drug money back. So, again, it wasn't actually drugs.
But think about that. Like DeAnthony Thomas, like Oregon, and I know he didn't do much in the NFL. Oregon doesn't win some of those games without DeAnthony Thomas. DeAnthony Thomas was
phenomenal in college.
He was phenomenal. And again, he cost a little more because USC, but like it cost Oregon a couple $100,000.
Yep.
Two maybe $300,000 tops.
Yep.
To get DeAnthony Thomas. So like the inflation, it can't keep up. Something has to give. Either again, whether one of these stupid bills gets passed and restrictions, although people will find a way around it. But ultimately what you're going to see is these prices will either come down or schools have to just start making allocation decisions. And I think you've seen Oregon very clearly, and it's not just Oregon. You've seen a lot of schools. I mentioned Ohio State. You've seen a lot of schools that have fallen off kind of across some of the other programs. Business decisions are being made.
Right.
So there just is not an unlimited supply of rich guys writing checks.
Right.
There just isn't.
And that's what I was getting at more than anything. I was trying to highlight, it wasn't like does Oregon have a huge problem? Are they underfunded? No, Oregon's not underfunded as an athletic department in terms of their NIL. The issue was, here's how things are being allocated. And at this point, Oregon is much more willing to spend $500,000 on a fourth corner to make sure they have depth in the secondary than they are to go get the number one recruit in the nation in women's basketball. It's just a different priority.
Yeah.
Couple things. One, numbers are going to come down, I think, because eventually we'll collectively bargain. They'll come up with a salary cap by conference, or potentially the Big Ten SEC will have their own number. The rest of the schools will have, the Power Four will have a different number, and then the group of 6 will have a number that they can all work with. I do think we'll eventually have kind of a transfer fee situation like soccer, where if your quarterback develops and he ends up being a $3 million quarterback, you have to give, again, part of a collective bargaining agreement, you have to give the money that player was getting paid on his salary double or plus 50%. Yeah. So these programs that are losing but developing players actually get more money to then go get new players because they develop somebody. So the school will have to pay a fee to that school. Does that make sense? So kids worth $2 million. You bought him initially at Oregon State for $500,000. Well, you now have to give them $750,000 to get their quarterback because they have to be whole. Otherwise, you're just making them feeder programs and there's no chance for them to move up. I've also heard from some of the bigger programs and some of the bigger agents, there is a belief that there's a hang on right now, stay as relevant as possible right now, compete right now. The bubble's going to burst. Yeah. And it's not that the Oregons and the Texas Techs and the Ohio States and the LSUs can't afford to keep going. It's the mid-tier program. And I'm not taking shots at anybody, but it's the, traditional Boston College, Wake Forest, NC States, Northwesterns of the world, who are still paying a pretty penny to put a roster together, even if they're not a national title contender. They can't keep coming to their donors, their boosters. You talked about a $200,000 check, and that's how it's mostly working. That's how it's mostly working everywhere. And can you imagine writing that check at Northwestern and being like, hey, we're going to go 3-9, but we really don't want to go 0-12. So can we have another $250,000 check? Because we really need a running back.
Yeah.
That bubble's going to burst. And there's a belief that very, very soon, that mid to low tier in all the Power Fours, your Wake Forests, again, your Vanderbilts, although they've recovered, those schools are going to say, we can't sustain this. We cannot continue to have our $8 to $12 million, our $15 million roster. We have to drop this down to $5 million. Well, now suddenly their pool's cut in half. The Oregons, the LSUs of the world no longer have to go up that extra bit to get those 4-star guys that are depth for them, but stars for Vanderbilt and those schools. So there's a strong belief that this is going to come down by two means. One, again, a collective bargaining agreement where we set a cap, and two, the bubble bursting for the mid-level school that just can't afford to keep talking their boosters into spending $10 to $20 million on a roster to go 4-8. And you think it's frustrating, or some, not you, but the collective you thinks it's frustrating to spend $40 million and come up short in the semifinals. Imagine what these schools are doing who are paying $18 just to keep their place in the Power Four, and they suck. They're going 3-9, they're going 2-10, and then they're losing all their stars every year anyway. Yeah. That would be maddening. And that's what's going on at 90% of these schools. Yeah. So I do think we're going to see a lot of change in the next few years. I really hope we see that transfer fee idea. I think it's a great idea for these programs who are considered right now feeder programs, that, hey, you develop a guy and he ends up being worth $10 million, you get 20% of that. So now your budget's bigger for the next year because you got $1.8 million in surplus from developing that quarterback, and now you can go get an O-line or go get whatever. I hope that happens, but we're going to see a lot of change, and I do think the numbers are going to come down. I would also say, last thing, the inflation we talked about, where people are saying 50, but it's really more like 40, that's across the board. I do know pretty dang well, just really well sourced in the Oregon State program with players and with high school coaches in this area. I know exactly how much a lot of guys are getting paid. There was a site that was doing NIL valuation. They were 6 figures off on every single starter on the defense. Yeah. So and that ranges obviously from 100,000 and 800,000 or whatever. They were off by 6 figures on every single starter whose deal I know. And I was told no player on this team on defense makes what the lowest player on that whole chart is making. That's not accurate. So they're way, way off across the board. So fans who are all excited about, this player got $4 million. Sometimes that player getting $4 million really got like 700,000. The numbers are really, really off sometimes. So be careful with that.
Yeah. And that's kind of always, it's hard to know, but I've always believed that those numbers were inflated. But I think some people inflate them because people want to pretend how rich they are. That happens all the time. And then the other one is, I think sometimes the other side wants the outrage of, oh, this kid makes this much money.
It works both ways. There's the outrage of it, and then there's the agent of it. I'm the agent that negotiated the $14 million deal for Jaden Rashada. Well, it was actually, they want.
And sometimes if it's a $14 million deal, I've heard that's it's $4 million a year, but you have to stay for all the years to get it. And, you're not getting Sorsby did not get $5 million to walk away from Texas Tech. I'm sure they had given him a little bit, but he wasn't getting that $5 million up front. When DeBanza signed with BYU, that was the number that was 7. And he screamed from the heavens. He's like, dude, I did not have $7 million.
Yeah.
But that was widely reported that it was 7 million. And so I just, again, take everything until you see contracts like in the NFL or in the NBA where you actually know what it is and it's signed into, a piece of paper. I have a hard time believing the numbers that are thrown around out there. And I also have a hard time believing that schools, no matter what you do, schools will find a way around it. If you have the money, revenue sharing, it's, we're putting a cap on this at $20.5 million. Well, until there's an actual hard cap and punitive damages, I don't believe that anyone will actually follow any of that. So,
I do think part of the collective bargaining agreement that they have to be careful with is you could see a scenario where the Big Ten and the SEC come up with extremely, extremely light sanctions for paying off the books because they want to be able to spend and get those players. That's going to be have to be something that's collectively bargained across all of Division I with various budgets. They do need to have a harsh penalty. If you're going to set a salary cap, giving money to a player outside of the salary cap that you don't claim or make public needs to be like a player is banned for a year, coach who was negotiated the deal is banned for a year. If you make that a slap on the wrist, nothing's going to change. It has to be a harsh penalty. Speaking of harsh penalties, although I think this one's justified, the Brendan Sorsby situation keeps yo-yoing back and forth, and we gave a very downtrodden report when it turned out he was going to play. He is now not going to play. He's going to enter into the supplemental draft. And I'll say this, credit to conference power for a change. The Big 12 just basically went, dude, this guy bet on his own team. We're not doing this. We won't play you. We will sue. We are not allowing this. And I do think for a change, I don't always agree with the conferences. I don't always agree with the NCAA. This is one where I was decidedly in their ballpark and not player empowerment. And thank God that dude's not going to play. We all would have rooted so hard against Texas Tech. They would have been the ultimate. They would have been the Victor Wembanyama's of college football. We would not have tolerated that whole thing. I thank God, right? I mean, that's
unlike Wemby, I think permanent damage has been done by Texas Tech. That's the most hated program in America, and they didn't do the right thing. They got outmaneuvered. That stupid lawsuit they had from the Texas AG opened Texas up to a federal lawsuit, and they buckled. The detail came out about it that Sorsby didn't leave on his own. Texas Tech told him he couldn't play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like Texas Tech literally informed Sorsby that it's not happening, man. Like, we're going to lose this. And so they booted him and just said, hey, take your money and just go away. So Texas Tech backed themselves into their corner. The scary thing is had the stupid Ken Paxton, the Texas AG, who's crooked as they come, had he not intervened with his big fat mouth, they may have gotten away with this. I'm not certain.
His neener letter backfired.
Yeah, it did. It basically opened Texas Tech up to a federal lawsuit. And turns out that the Big 12 lawyers are smarter than what the Texas Attorney General is. So at least it's done. And we found out where there was a line. I always wondered, like, at what point a line gets drawn, and I didn't know if that line was ever going to get drawn, and it got drawn. So, and now we'll kind of see where this goes. I know right now they keep changing the stupid Save College Sports Act, and, don't even get me started on this. There's Tommy Tuberville for the first time in his life said something that I thought was relevant, where he's against it. It's such a crooked bill. And the fact that the NFLPA and some of these organizations came out and are telling someone to have a manufactured salary cap and a limit on what you can make without any say and how you're governed. I mean, that really bothered me. That's hypocrisy of the highest order. And that's just protecting their minor league system that they don't have to pay anything for. I just thought that was real chicken shit on the part of the professional leagues.
The NFLPA, who fights tooth and nail for player rights, went to the lower levels and you guys don't need them rights. Terrible.
I thought it was really, really poor. I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the NFL doing it but the NFLPA, because I get why the NFL, I mean, God, the NFL has the greatest system known to man. It's minor leagues. And not only is it minor leagues, but it's minor leagues with stars. They do all the marketing, everything for them, the development, and then they hand stars to the NFL on a platter. Of course, the NFL doesn't want that to blow up. But for the NFLPA to say, just take what someone gives you without any say in how you're governed or how you're disciplined. And by the way, here's a limit on what you can make, despite what the free market says. Boy, that is
gross.
I thought that was a really disappointing thing for me on the part of the Players Association, not the leagues, because whatever, the leagues I understand, but the players, that's poor form.
Listen to a couple of podcasts about Sorsby's NFL stock. I thought it was interesting. You and I both thought maybe third or fourth round supplemental pick. If you don't know how the supplemental draft goes, it starts in a couple weeks here. They haven't had one in 3 years. When a player enters the supplemental draft, they've missed the NFL draft because of circumstances. They enter in the supplemental draft. There's a bidding. It is based on, I think, last year's record, or at least you're tiered in that area, and you can bid the equivalent of whatever pick for next year. So it'll start with worst teams in the NFL, do you want to give up next year's first to put in a bid for Sorsby? It won't be any of those teams. No one's giving up a top 5 pick in the draft for next year for Sorsby. But it goes down the list. So then it's mid-tier first round. Playoff team is the last of the first round, and then it goes second round, and then until somebody bids, and then the draft is over because Sorsby's the only guy in the draft. Todd McShay, I listened to him for a long time. He had a couple different podcasts on this. He thinks it's entirely possible, but considers it 50-50 that he gets a first-round bid. And I think that's shocking. His explanation made a lot of sense. He said one thing that's really important to remember, there are a few teams that have multiple first-round picks, and you can pick which first-round pick you bid. So you can enter, like the Jets have 3. I don't know who the other teams are, but one of them is like a Super Bowl contender. They have their first-round pick. If you have 3 picks, you can go, we'll throw in, I'm giving out an example. I don't know for sure. We'll give up the Chiefs' first-round pick for, or whatever. I'm just making up a team. We'll give up the Chiefs' first-round pick for Sorsby. Well, you still have 2. You're probably giving up a back half of first guy, and you're taking a flyer at a quarterback. The other thing Todd McShay said is there's a very different, and I've known this covering the draft forever, the conversation behind closed doors is very, very different in terms of prospect world than what the public hears. You'll see mock drafts there was a mock draft one time that had 3 Oregon Ducks going in the first round that were offensive linemen. The highest of those guys went, I think, in the 6th round, and the other 2 were not drafted. And that happened in October. The public is way, way, way off on what really people think. Todd McShay said is there are 4 quarterbacks that people felt were in the discussion for the number 1 pick this year. The 2 front runners, because they're a little more established, are Dante Moore and Arch Manning. The other 2 that GMs had talked about consistently is Lenora Sellers because of the athleticism and the upside, and Sorsby. And he said those were the 4 that were really considered the top tier quarterbacks that were more than likely first round picks in next year's draft. And he said he talked to 4 people, 2 GMs and 2 front office people. He said he's not connected enough to talk to 4, 5, 6, 7 GMs or more in any given time because he feels no one is essentially in the NFL at this point except like Schefter and those guys. So he thinks it's possible he goes for a first. He thinks it would be shocking if he didn't go for a second. So that kind of surprises me. He's really raw. But if you can take a flyer on a quarterback potentially for only a second-round pick that maybe behind closed doors people thought, hey, he's got a chance to be a top 10 guy, great. From my eyes, this was a dude who, for me, probably would have settled at like a round 2, round 3 value after this college football season. I can't really imagine giving up a lot given the gambling problems and just how big a twerp he is. Like betting against your own team is just crappy. The way he fought this is bad. The optics of it are bad. He's going to be public enemy number 1, but that's what it sounds like for his NFL draft stock. Any of that surprise you?
No, I mean, it said when he asked for an NFL opinion to come out last year, right? It was mid-round. And you can move up, you can move down. But at the end of the day, he was a mid-round guy until this year. Like he was going to have to prove that he was a first-round guy. And that's so many quarterbacks are like that. Nussmeier was like that. Klubnik was like it. All those guys, and they were all viewed better than Sorsby. So I don't know. Would he have played this year and been a first-round guy? Or would he have played poorly and been a 4th-round guy? Nussmeier. Would
he be Drew Aller or would he be? Yeah, I mean, we don't know.
You just don't know. So you're literally taking a flyer on athletic talent, and he's probably facing a suspension. I'm guessing the NFL. Terrell Pryor got suspended. So my guess is the NFL is going to suspend him for 5-8 games, which is fine. He's not going to play anyways. So I have a hard time believing that someone's going to take a high pick on someone who is a project. Not going to play for a couple years, probably, and is an addict with anxiety disorders. I mean, you want to talk about a red flag at quarterback because it's not just the fact that he's a gambling addict and okay, he went to rehab for 30 days because I'm sure you know how addiction works because that solves it after 30 days, and he's got all these anxiety, mental disorder. I mean, I don't know. I think someone obviously will take him. But I don't think it will be in the first 2 rounds. This smells like throw out a 3rd or 4th and see what happens. The other thing too is if he shows up on a bad team, he becomes story number one in training camp. And from Tim Tebow to Cam Newton to whoever,
there's some Shedeur Sanders stuff here.
The one thing that the NFL does not like to deal with at all is they don't like answering questions about backup quarterbacks. And the backup quarterback, Cam Newton even said it. It's the one thing he actually said that I ever believed. They don't want me as a backup quarterback because I'm a star. Yes. And you won't be anything else. You demand to be the center of attention. And teams don't like when the center of attention is a just a non-factor. So I don't know. I think it'll have to be the right situation, right place. I don't know. Honestly, if I was a betting man, hint, hint, I don't think Sorsby will ever be much of anything. NFL quarterbacks in the first round hit at a 50-50 rate. Quarterbacks outside of the first round hit at about a 10% rate. Nothing I ever saw from Sorsby when I watched him play screamed off the page like some sort of generational talent. He's got all this now baggage on top of him. And just, chances are he goes like every other player that goes in the third or fourth round of the NFL, and that's you're a backup for a few years. You never hear of him.
And by the way, the hit rate at quarterback in anything other than first round, I know we talk about Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts. It's not high. There's a reason we talk about Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, because there aren't many of them. Look out potentially for the Steelers on this one. Sure. You've got Aaron Rodgers has a one-year deal left. He's going to be the headliner, right? He's the big name. He does seem to be weird about other quarterbacks. He's going to be more popular than Sorsby, which might make him okay with it. He doesn't care about them giving up future draft capital because he's leaving. And the Steelers have always had a strong infrastructure and believed in that infrastructure. I could see them throwing out a second or third round type pick for the potential to have Rodgers heir apparent, because they got nobody in the building after that, and it does make some sense for them. So that'd be the team I'd kind of watch for. But I have no inside information on that. It just makes sense from a football standpoint.
Yeah, no, I just don't think the market's going to be as robust as some people think.
Agreed. That's it for us. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, West Coast Biased. You can get us on Spotify, on YouTube. I posted on my Substack. It's on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to Suke Monday through Friday on 105.1 The Fan, 3 to 7 p.m. with longtime partner Isaac Ropp, who is he well, I guess when people listen to this, it won't matter. He's out today. You're flying solo?
He's been gone all week. He's been in Kansas City. He went back to the motherland to I don't know, go see some Royals baseball and do whatever boys from Kansas City do. So he's having a boys weekend in Kansas.
Good deal. That's prime time, 3 to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday on 105.1 The Fan. Suke, thanks, man.
Good bill.